Throw it in the dirt. Here we are, Pods. Episode 4. Season 1, Episode 4. Man, who would have thought we'd have gotten here?
What a treat.
Yeah.
What a treat. Live from the tanning bed.
I was going to say, live from Kenny Rogers Chicken. You look like the Seinfeld when Kramer, they put the red light in across the street from Kramer. And
I almost hope that this edit comes back with Luda, red light district.
Throw It in the Dirt podcast, episode 4. I'm your host, Brandon Hudspeth. Also, my co-host, Wade Broyles, Mr. 26, coming at you live from, where are you? Hell?
I mean, may as well be. Blue Mountain Beach. Just finished a nice dinner and at Seaside, and it appears that the only place to get peace and quiet on the beach is outside of a red light on the porch. So
on the balcony. Awesome. Well, before we get started, let's get our social stuff because we did that at the very end last time. So let's make sure that we get it, early this time. So on Twitter, dirt_pod on Twitter. Be sure you go follow us. We're going to try to, some of the stuff we have tonight, we'll probably have to put out through Twitter, just so people can kind of get good looks at it. And then the other is Facebook. So we're on facebook.com/dirt_pod. So be sure you go follow us along there. YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We're trying to grow this thing. We were talking about this offline. Obviously, we've had some great guests, but we've had some very non-social media inspired guests. So we have to, and that should all change tonight. We got a great guest that we're going to bring in. Before we do, Dirt in the Dirt brought to you by Gentile Apparel, gentileapparel.com. Be sure you go check them out. They have a collegiate collection with Ole Miss. They also have Mississippi State, Alabama, Missouri. And they're trying to grow as a company. I'm wearing Gentile again. This is a little bit older model of Gentile. But nonetheless.
You keep it clean, though.
That's right. You got to keep it clean. And so again, like I said, we have a very interesting guest on tonight. A guy that I know, as we've talked about before, I was a student manager for the Ole Miss team. And our guest tonight was also a student manager. He had a little bit different role than what I had, and he'll obviously get into some of that. But then went on to do some really interesting things, and was in the Army. And Wade, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about our guest, and then you can introduce him, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Super special dude from a fact that one of the most likable human beings that you'll ever come across on the face of the earth. But he has a real mind for numbers. And typically, as you guys know who have been listening for 3 times now, we like to go over stats early. And we thought it would be very fitting as our guest used to run stats for the university and did stats for the United States Army. What better way to talk about some previous game stats, some future game stats, and give you guys some real insights into not only what Ole Miss looks for from a staff perspective, but also from just something cool, a different take. And ultimately, B-Hud, I think if we could classify our show as anything, I would hope it would be different and unique. And so super excited to introduce Seth Keshel.
Let's bring him in.
Seth, let's bring him in. Yeah, for sure.
There he is.
Mr. Keshel.
What's up, guys?
Seth Keshel.
Wait, I like that background. It makes mine look a lot better.
Yeah, I just hopped in the tanning bed. We're working on. We'll turn here in a bit. Make sure we even it out. Keep it clean.
We've had a coin every episode, and this is his. So Seth, what's up, man? Tell us where you are, what you're doing, what you're up to these days.
Well, obviously, as you know, we messed up the initial start time. I'm texting you guys an hour ago wondering when we're going to start this thing. It's because I'm out of my territorial waters and I'm in Ohio. So I'm on the Eastern time zone. This is not my house. This is a residence inn. It doesn't really remind me of my residence. But I knew that we were gonna get down with this show tonight and come hell or high water, or come a trip to Columbus, Ohio, and that's where I'm at. So I travel a lot for work, and honestly, that plays into my rebuttal to Mr. Klein and his story last week. But so I'm coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome. Very cool. So what we're going to do is usually we bring in the guests kind of last, and, we go through the, questions and whatnot, but because of your background and what you do, and just, we've obviously been texting, and, just the interest level of everything that you have, put together, and we've talked through, we wanted to just kind of bring you in from the beginning, and we'll go through our show as normal and let you just kind of be a co-host more than a guest. And then the second half, we'll kind of get into more of the guest and, ask some questions and stories and things like that. But what we usually do is just kind of the rundown. We'll go through a Vandy recap. We'll talk about the UT Martin game on Wednesday, Georgia preview. We'll go through the SEC tournament projections and kind of the bracket, how that works. D1 Baseball came out with another host projection. And then once we get done with going through those pieces, we'll bring it back and kind of, again, we'll let you tell your story, which should be fun. But yeah, so the first piece, again, Vandy, obviously we can kind of, it's a spoiler, but, winning 2 out of 3 from Vandy was just such a huge weekend, and something that, shot in the arm, that much needed shot in the arm. But, I think we take it first, with the news last week, Gunnar Hoagland going down with the UCL and having to have Tommy John surgery, huge blow. And, for me, before we kind of get into the game one, for me, and not trying to be negative, I'm looking at it going, season might be over. This is it. And I'm not trying to be negative, but again, I'm a positive person, but I'm looking at it going, you're looking at our pitchers or, our staff, and you go, I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me kind of where your head was going into this series.
Wade, do you want to jump on that?
I think we hit on it early, Hud, and in last week's show. You got to figure a way to just scratch, claw, keep it close, game 1 or game 2, with arguably, 2 first rounders, right, back to back. Like, how do you fight, claw, do everything you can to hopefully keep it close and give yourself a chance? And with all, and then kind of for the rest of our outcome, how do we figure out a way to finish Sunday, all in? And pleasantly surprised. I was Friday night. I was just like you. Like, luckily we threw Doug, and Doug was Doug.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Losing Hoagland, you can't really. I mean, actually, you can't quantify it, and I'll show you in the stats how we quantify that. But that's obviously it's a dagger to the heart. You have a great lefty behind him who you're going to run him out on Friday. You got to win. Now, really, if you'd have told me that we were going to play 4 games against teams from Tennessee in a 5-day span, 4-day span, and we were going to win 2, I would have thought we would have scraped 1 out against Vanderbilt and blown out UT Martin. So looking at the big picture, which baseball is obviously a marathon, not a sprint, and Ole Miss has done very well in midweek games at home. So it's not good what happened. It was a systemic issue with the bullpen, as we've seen all year. That came back, and it really kept right on track with their statistics. And that wasn't good. But, I mean, taking 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt, you know who else took 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt?
Who?
Georgia took 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt on the road. So really good team. If you're going to get Rocker and Leiter and you're going to split those, you can't ask for more than that.
Right. So game 1, again, as we've talked about, Nikhazy does what Nikhazy does, which is, he goes out and gives you a quality start, keeps you in the game. And more than that, I mean, he went pitch for pitch with, again, you've got either the first or second, maybe third, if somebody's crazy, draft picks in the MLB draft. And he goes pitch for pitch with Rocker on Friday night. And I thought Kevin Graham, TJ were excellent. Kevin Graham, who we haven't talked about a ton, honestly, has just been, I think, terrific this year, batting in the 3 and 4 hole, kind of going back and forth. And then TJ McCants, we have talked about a lot. Wade's a big fan of TJ. Thought he had an incredible night, had 2 RBIs, and then obviously we get the win on Friday, 3-1.
I saw an interesting stat, Hud, via Twitter, which was cool. That one of the guys that you're real fond of, and I know we talk about a lot on this show, is Mr. Gonzalez, and his ability to constantly deliver, right? And so if you think back on some other notable shortstops in the Ole Miss program, and Mr. Kessinger and Mr. Cozart, I think it took them till their junior year to get above 320, and I think my man's hitting 340-ish with 7 or 8 home runs. And so if you really want to talk through kind of to Seth's point, quantifying how special that guy is, those 2 guys before him were pretty dang good, and he's holding his own. So it was good to see him do what he does, right? Always fun to see.
So we take into game 2. So get the win on Friday night. You feel good about that. And I think the energy, and you guys both being in those dugouts, I mean, you get it. The energy of winning on Friday or Thursday, whatever it may be, it just sets up your weekend completely different than losing on Friday and then being behind the 8 ball. And so I think going into Saturday, there was a lot of energy with our fan base, which is something that was needed. Again, talk about the shot in the arm. It kind of snowballed, right? So it got out of hand. I think Jack Leiter, who's incredible, and I think will probably be the first pick just from pedigree and all those things. Jack Leiter just, was unbelievable, and he pitched like he's supposed to pitch. They hit 6 home runs in the game, which, that's some of that's on us, obviously. But they brought the bats, and we lose that one 13-2, scratched out a run late. But it was essentially, it was over after the, 4th inning, as soon as we kind of had to, go to the bullpen and start digging, it was essentially over. Again, not a ton from that game that I think are bright spots. We had some guys, that had some good at bats, but nothing that really stands out to me, that you want to, of note, unless you guys have something on game 2 there.
Yeah, I think if you're going to face a guy like Jack Leiter and they're just going to swing the bats, then that's the way you want to go out. There's not a whole lot of second guessing, like where you've got a midweek game and you're up 5-2 in the 9th, you kick the ball around, throw it to the backstop. It wasn't any of that. So some good experience to be able to face a pitcher of that quality with that sort of velocity, that sort of movement, that sort of command. So really, it's if you're gonna take Vanderbilt, you got Rocker and Leiter, and you split those 2, you can't really ask for a lot better than that. We're in position to take the series, which obviously we did.
That's right.
I do want to bring some perspective to that, Hud. Really quick. I know we've kind of toyed around, and maybe this is us being wishful thinkers, but it's safe to say you win against Rocker and you feel awesome. Cloud 9, you mentioned it, and you're coming into Leiter, the second head of the beast. Would you have liked to see Doherty get a shot, knowing that, I don't want to say that we were gonna throw in the towel from the first pitch, right? Don't get it twisted. But the thought process of like, you're not really expected to win this game. Let's go give a kid a chance to prove himself and see what he's made of. Let's give him 5 guaranteed and see what happens. I would have loved to see something like that. I don't know what your take is on that, but I like Diamond better out of the pen personally.
I think there's a lot of things I like, but what I know that's going to happen is the guy that that gets the opportunity all year is going to get the opportunity.
Sure.
What's the really quick, because we do want to keep it rolling, but what's the mental side of that when you're sitting in the dugout just getting pounded? As a pitcher, a guy that came out of the bullpen, when you hear Broyles to the bullpen, like what's your what goes through your head where you're like, it's, it's 9-0, 9-1, and they're just, I mean,
Yeah.
they are high leg kicking and just softball hacking balls into the student section. I mean, what do you do there? What's your mental?
I think for me, I mean, that was kind of my role for a long time, and so I was always excited for the opportunity. It's I had a really good I did a really good job of just blocking all that other stuff out. Like I've got to do my job, and whatever, like when I'm on the mound, my whole goal, we've talked about it, doors blown. That's my mentality. And whether it's 0-0 or 10-0. And so for the fact, for some guys to say, well, I only pitch whenever it's competitive, or get out of here. Like, every single guy on an SEC roster is there to compete. Whatever they tell you, that's their role. And that's why they were signed. A lot of the guys are very threshold guys of like, when does he go to Ole Miss, or when does he go to Memphis, right? Still a credible school, but not an SEC caliber Ole Miss. And a lot of it could be average to equal stuff, but maybe his makeup or his competitiveness or whatever edges him up, and you're looking for the full picture guy. And so, yeah, it's game on. There's a light switch, and when your name's called, that light switch turns on. Right.
I just feel like those are huge opportunities for guys that don't get a lot of innings to go out, like a Jack Doherty, who came in a midweek game and, non-pressure situation, and we were up big, and he comes in and, he throws it hard. I'll say the only thing that I would have liked to have seen in that game was maybe, Greer Holston, who I know is having some, can't throw strikes, issues or whatever it is. I would have liked to see him, just because it's senior day and all that stuff, and I'm a sentimental guy. I would have liked to have seen him get some innings. Again, it's 13-2. What's it hurt for him to go out in the in the ninth and throw, and if he walks 6 guys, who cares, or whatever. Don't let it get to that point, but you know what I mean. So moving into Sunday, we come to the ballpark, different lineup, which was a big fan of. My text groups were going nuts. Like, what is Bianco doing? Like, does he want to lose? Like, all these things. But I was a huge fan of the lineup change up on Sunday. Dunhurst has been struggling. We move him down a little bit. Maybe he gets some better pitches. TJ McCants has been on fire. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum about. And then Jacob Gonzalez, again, has been on fire. And something we talked about early, his inconsistency, where he would be really good for a couple of games and then just kind of disappear for a couple of games. And he's just been super consistent, over the last probably 3 weekends, maybe 4 weekends, which I'm a fan of his. And you just talked about him, but I think that those type performances are what get us kind of in the money, or in the in where we need to be. And then I think the other thing, Dunhurst had a big day. It was good to see him swing it well, hits the home run, and absolutely, I don't know if I've seen anybody in an Ole Miss uniform pimp a home run as hard as he pimped that. He stood there for too long, really. Ben Van Cleve, like, he should have been on skates, because
heads up.
And the guy threw at him. It was very obvious the guy threw at him. That's the wrong guy to throw at. I mean, Ben Van Cleve is huge. Now he may just be a big teddy bear, but that dude is massive. I don't know if I'd have thrown at him. But I'll say the last thing, and then I do want to get y'all's takes a little deeper on the Sunday game. But Kimbrel, I've been a big fan of Kimbrel, because I think we need another lefty arm out of the pen, and he hasn't really put it all together. He, again, this is a psychology thing, but he's kind of a soft-spoken guy, almost like a Will Klein. And Seth, I know you remember Will Klein, his early years was just kind of he was very, like, just kind of goofy and not serious and didn't take it serious, and then all of a sudden this light switch flips, and then he becomes the Will Klein that, we know. But I think Kimbrel's kind of like that, just in my minimum exchanges with him. And then, in press conferences and things like that, he's just kind of a, soft-spoken guy, kind of a, I don't even, almost sounds like I don't even know I'm here, or whatever. But, like, it just, I don't know. Seeing him throw that well over 3 innings. And the hope is that you can get some consistency out of another arm, especially a left-handed arm. I think that was huge. And then the Rebs take it 13-10. The funniest thing about Sunday's game for me, really quick, was I had to go to my daughter's preschool graduation. I leave, it's 2-0, and I'm like, here we go. And they had runners on when I left. So I go to the graduation. I didn't take my phone in. I come back out. My phone is like blowing up, and I get in and I turn the radio and I hear Kellum doing the end of inning recap, and he's like 10 runs on 6 hits or whatever, and I was like 10 runs. It's like what happened? And so anyway, I'd love to hear y'all's take on Sunday.
Did Kimbrel wind up with the shirt by any chance?
I believe he did. Yeah.
He's got to. So there's a big mantra in pitching. Every single pitching coach, and I'm sure Wade's heard this a million times. Your team goes up on offense, and they put the runs up. They take a lead. You want to go put up a 0. So a pitcher that can go out there and slam down a 0 on the mound the next inning is a huge shot in the arm, a huge momentum boost. Well, we went out there and gave up 5 the very inning after we went up 10-2. So that's something that you add into the psychology of Kimbrel's outing, which is he comes in there after the grand slam that made it 10-7. I'm not sure if he was in immediately after that or not, but he came in shortly thereafter, and he bridged the gap, gave you several innings, and he pitched well against a really good team. And that's the thing that we really have to consider. This is a confidence booster, because in 05 and 06, we needed that extra arm. We needed a Sunday guy in 05, and we got Eric Fowler. He got out there in the Mayor's Cup and absolutely shoved it. And it was the same thing that happened the next year in the Mayor's Cup. Will Klein goes out there, does the same thing. And now Fowler settled into the number 3 starter slot, and he was absolutely nasty facing everybody else's Sunday starter. Will Klein, you could actually make the case that down the stretch in 05, Fowler was our secret weapon. That slider he had. Now Klein came in there. I think he got action that weekend right after the Mayor's Cup. I believe it was South Carolina. He came in on Sunday and we won, avoided a sweep. But there's always this big game where there's a confidence boost from a guy that you never knew you had. So like maybe we do have something with Doherty. Maybe there is something with Kimbrel, because if we are going to get out of this tournament or get deep in that tournament, and if we're going to make it out of regionals, we're going to have some more depth in the bullpen. Otherwise you're going to have to sweep straight through and hope that the other guys are a strong pitching team and not a good offensive team.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, I think we're going to have to hit. Bottom line. I just don't know that we have enough arms, and I hope those guys are surprised. I hope they're secret weapons. I hope they're surprises. I hope they continue to pitch well, gain some confidence, continue on. But I just feel like, at this point in the season, with the teams that we're going to play coming up, we're just going to have to beat them. We're just going to have to pound hits. We're going to have good at bats. We're going to have to, scratch runs across. One of my biggest frustrations, and I keep burying the lead. I'm excited to see some of Seth's numbers, but one of my frustrations all season long has been we've been a good offensive team, we're the best in the SEC. We're great with runners in scoring position. I just think we could do more to push runs across. We could do more hit and run. We could steal more. We could do more of that. We don't. We just wait for the hit. And so last game we'll cover, and then we'll kind of let Seth jump in to whatever. But midweek game, play UT Martin. Mallett's, who he's just been up and down, mostly down of late, and I like the kid. I think he's got he throws 3 pitches, he throws for strikes. I think he throws them a little too good, and he's been getting beat up a little bit. He's a freshman. I hope that doesn't hurt. I hope that doesn't bruise the psyche. I hope he can learn from it and get the experience. UT Martin hit 3 home runs, which is a cause for concern. They're one of the worst teams in their league, and they're coming in here hitting like the Yankees. And then again, Austin Miller struggled. The bullpen as a whole struggled, and we lose the game 9-7, which doesn't really it doesn't affect us. We went from RPI like 10 down to 12. It wasn't the end of the world. But again, I think the bullpen struggling against a team like that worries you for when a South Alabama 4 seed comes to your regional and you need to go put a guy in to bridge you to Broadway, and all of a sudden, anything can happen. Seth remembers in 04, we host a regional at home for the first time ever. Western Kentucky brings in a guy that's 5'0", lefty, and he absolutely shoves. He threw a one-hitter. Is that right? Did I remember
Yeah,
that right?
it was a one-hitter. The guy topped out at 86. I'll never forget his name, Grady Hinchman.
That's it. Yeah.
You know how these baseball rosters are. You're 5'10", well, you're probably 5'7".
Right.
We hit Stephen Petway. I don't know, Babineau, those guys, like they were launching balls to the track. I mean, we hit a number of balls to the track that just didn't go, and we moved the fences in the next year. They probably would have gone, but that was just one of those games. We threw Stephen Head, and that was a game where Coach Bianco, it's our first host as a regional, and Coach Bianco is straight up. I don't know if he's done it since, but he's real hard up against switching up the pitching rotation to face a 4 seed. I'm kind of split on that issue. The point is to win the regional, so if you burn your ace against a 4 seed and then you can't beat the tough 2 seed, then whatever. But Steven pitched great. I mean, he gave up a shank job down the third baseline, if I recall, that scored their only run.
Yeah.
And it was a good lineup. So, I mean, you can't be upset about not having Holloman out there, but that was a rough one.
Yeah. So we talked about it, and we'll do a UGA preview in just a little bit, but before we get to that, I mean, and I know Seth, you've got some stuff that you want to go through, but as a whole, as a season, as we move into the SEC tournament, obviously we have another series, and I think we need to get at least one at Georgia to really solidify. I think 2, there's no doubt. 3 would be huge. I don't know that I think the loss on Wednesday hurts you more if you had any shot at a conversation about a national seed if you swept this weekend, which I don't know if we did. I mean, we were probably we probably were like the 10th team. If you had any shot, I think Wednesday hurts you from that perspective. If somebody, if a state went and got, swept or lost 2 out of 3, and they kind of fall out of good graces, or Tennessee, even I think Tennessee is probably a lot. But anyway, I think as a whole, as you look at it, there were some frustrating times of the season where people looked at this team and said, "Oh, they can't hit," and then you look at the average and you go, "Well, they can hit. So what is it? What's the next thing?" There's certainly been times of late where they say the bullpen's not good, and I think we're gonna dig into that a little bit, and then I think I think what people don't realize is there's a lot of freshmen playing, and so to me, and sophomores playing that didn't play in the SEC last year because we didn't have the SEC last year. To me, I think there's not a lot of leeway being given by our fan base, and that's fine. It is what it is. They expect you to win. But I think if you dig into it a little deeper, you can look at some things that tell the story a little better. And I think that's what, I think it's what Seth can do for us, and maybe do that a little better and a little more statistically, if you will.
Gotcha. You want me to jump into that?
Yeah, go.
So keep me cognizant of the time, okay? I mean, I'm not going to get buried in this too bad. You got the meat and potato stats: batting average, home runs, RBIs. It can be a little bit simplistic. You've got ballpark factors. You've got all kinds of stuff that plays into what kind of stats. You might not have a good RBI total if you've got a big bat at the top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup's not any good. So I like to look at these sabermetric statistics. You got a walk rate. This is just straight up walks divided by plate appearance. You got a strikeout rate, strikeouts divided by plate appearance. And for the non-watching audience, the iTunes audience, I'm going over this. You can watch it on YouTube. I've got a couple charts on here, but you got an eye thing. I really like eye. This is walks divided by strikeouts, and you get an idea of how a hitter goes up there with plate discipline. So like an eye rating over 1 means a guy's walking more than he strikes out. That is an Albert Pujols statistically, so he's known for great contact. ISO, isolated power. This is basically his extra base output. This is slugging minus batting average. And then the last one on there is on base plus slugging. So I look at these stats to check how lineups are constructed. You want to make sure that you've got your bad bats, the worst bats down at the bottom. And you also want to make sure, like Wade said, his guy is TJ McCants. So one thing you're going to notice if you're looking at the screen here, our guys, almost all of them, are hitting just as good or better in conference play than they are in the entire season. I think you could have some of the playing in the February games where it's cold. It's not really a good hitting environment, or people just getting heated up. But McCants in particular, he's got an OPS 100 points higher in conference play than he does in the entire season. Now he strikes out a lot. He's got the highest strikeout rate of anybody that's a real regular. I mean, Baker's higher, but this is going to, I'm sure, improve as he refines his approach and gets used to the level of pitching in the SEC over the years. His power numbers. I mean, this offense is comparable to the 2005 team. In my opinion, the 2005 team, even though that we did not make it to Omaha, is almost certainly the most talented team. And it was a lineup of absolute bangers. Like those guys could really hit. These guys can too. So look at the lineup. You've got Leatherwood down here, the highest OPS that's currently out on the field, down at 7 most of the season. And we shook it up a little bit on Sunday. But this is a guy providing a lot of pop down there that you could probably make a case to move him up. Justin Bench, he's in the 5 slot. Well, if you look at his SEC stats, now he's been hit 20 times. I had to text Coach Lafferty. I was like, is that a real statistic? 20 hit by pitch. And I don't know. I guess he's Craig Biggio out there. But he's got really good contact numbers. Look at Chatagnier up there. High strikeout numbers. Down, offensive production's down a little bit. I think you'd actually probably get more value with him down, bench up. And then you're going to set the table. Graham, Dunhurst, move McCants up, Leatherwood up, and you've got a really nasty order. And this is without Tim Elko. So Tim Elko has Brian Petway 05 level production going on this season. And I mean, it's outstanding. Like, so not only Hoagland, but Elko is a serious dash to our
you're talking about one. I'm assuming Green is good, and that's why you have those highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about an era of bat that was different from the bats now. I mean, so these guys were completely different, and our guys are hitting as good of an offensive team as that 05 team that took Texas to the absolute last out. I mean, so anyway, keep going. To me,
I do want to make a quick point that the stats don't show on our boy Chanier. He hits more balls on the screws right at people than anybody in our lineup. And so while his stats, Seth, aren't necessarily glowing green, if you will, I do think that the guy is just, as Bench is the magnet for getting an HBP, his ball is a magnet for fielders, it seems, because he barrels some balls, and he's just right place, right time on the defensive side for that guy.
And that's why I wish that we had access to more of the analytics, with the velocities off the bat. And there's a statistic that kind of compensate for that called batting average with balls in play. And if it's low, I mean, I think an average one for balls in play is like 300 at the professional level. So we probably see something like that with him, if that's the case. Now, looking at like the 05 team, look at this. So one of the key differences between the 05 team and this year's team is depth. So at any given time in the 05 team, depending on what the rotation was, what the offensive rotation was, you might have had Justin Henry sitting on the bench. Justin Henry was a redshirt freshman at the time. And when he got into the lineup, I think his first weekend was Florida, first SEC series of 05, and he got in and really kickstarted the offense. Fast, good left-handed bat, contact guy. And then we had Alex Presley and Miles Franklin rotated out that year. So you might have had Alex Presley on the bench. Alex Presley had an 8-year major league career. And then you had, of course, CJ Ketchum, who we would call a professional hitter, somebody that's really tailor-made for the 2-hole with good contact numbers. But look at this. Look at these on-base plus slugging percentages on the right. You've got Henry, Coughlin, Petway, Mark Wright, and Stephen Head all over 900. Petway, of course, at 1145. So that's your Elko slot for this year's team. So the Petway was a surprise in 05. Like, he was a highly touted recruit. 03 and 04, like, his numbers were just kind of average. He got hot the end of 04, but 05 he was just ridiculous. I think he hit 21 home runs. Nobody could get him out. And of course, you've got Justin Henry and Chris Coughlin at the top of the lineup. Coughlin walking like crazy on base all the time. Barry Gunther down at the 9-hole getting on base all the time. I mean, this is an on base machine. And then you've got a freshman shortstop, Zach Cozart, of course, a major league career. So you've got 3 big leaguers here. You've got Barry Gunther played in AAA. Stephen Head played in AAA. Henry got to AAA. A bunch of these guys, almost everybody played pro ball. So this was a really nasty lineup. And we also had the depth on the mound. So here's your 2014 College World Series team. 1 through 5 stayed consistent down the stretch. I mean, those slots did not move.
Pause really quick. Do you remember Barry Gunther's home run against Vanderbilt to the
yeah, and
walk-off?
it's gonna be one of my stories.
All right, I'll leave it alone.
I've got a great story on that. And if Barry watched this, it was a hilarious story. But so this is your 04 team. It was like you said, there's some transition with the types of bats that were being used, but this is around the time when some of the home run totals started coming back. You know, you didn't have a guy with 5 home runs leading the team. But down at the bottom, you had some young blood. You had Woodman and Bortles down there. I think they were both freshmen. Woodman, of course, became a star for us. But these guys were on, you know, they had good on base percentages. Like you had Braxton Lee at the top, really fast, stole 30 bases that year. Great defender, patient guys. I mean, so this is just a solid but not overly fancy lineup.
Isn't it crazy how that it almost like a team thing, right? It's a gel thing. It's a dugout thing, because you just showed us a 2005 team who is, again, one game away, one pitch away, however you want to look at it. But you know, and then you got this 2014 team who just raked, you know, and they're not even as good offensively as that 05 team or the current team. So,
yep. And so this is one that this is like right up Coach Bianco's alley. He was a big time numbers guy, which is why we have the shirt system with the number of victories on there. I remember 2004 when he said, "Hey, 40 wins is the number. You know, that's going to get you a guaranteed host." We won 39 that year, but 05 we did win 40 on the last day of the regular season. So I did a study in the beginning of 2017 for Coach Bunn, Kyle Bunn. Wade, did you have a lot of interaction with Mr. Bunn?
Yeah,
he's got some.
Yeah, still chat to this day. So,
yeah, he's got some of the best stories. Anyway, he asked me to put together a list, and I sorted out 2011 to 2016. I'm not sure if 11 was a year where bats sort of came back to somewhat normal, which is why I filtered it to that. But that would be 6 years, 8 teams, so 48 College World Series teams. And I separated all these statistics, and I saw what every team had in common, what, you know, and goal setting, what a team's goals should be on every category, what the minimums are. So this is what our Rebels look like this year compared to what the College World Series trackers are. I have rehashed these out to be 55 game seasons and changed them a little bit. So some of the stuff, the game is different. You got more people swinging for the fence, strikeouts are up, but we're missing the mark in a couple things. Number one is road winning percentage. The lowest road winning percentage that made it into Omaha between 2011 and 16 was 471. And I believe that was one of the Texas Tech teams. So they obviously they made it up by dominating at home and getting hot at the right time. But that road obviously is important because it shows you if you're going on the road for a super regional potentially or on the road for a regional. This is something that all the teams have in common. The goal is win 2 out of every 3 road games, 653. We're at 462. So that's a number that we're missing the mark on. Now, of course, Ole Miss could be the first team to make the College World Series with that number. And of course, it would give you a new benchmark. But another one is ERA. We're at 4.49 going into yesterday's game. Goal is 2.95. You've had teams at 408. Arkansas had a team that had a 408 ERA, got into the College World Series one year, but with a great offense. Some of these statistics will surprise you, like caught stealing percentage. So if you manage to throw out more than 40% of attempted base stealers, the teams that did that had an average of 2 more wins per 55 than everybody else that went to Omaha. So it's kind of a compliment. Like once people realize your catcher is going to gun everybody down, which of course we've got a good one this year, but 40%, this is Pudge Rodriguez territory. That's where you start to see this. So we're making the mark. Our offense is outstanding. I mean, our offense is absolutely an Omaha caliber offense, and that is without Tim Elko too. I mean, we have an Omaha caliber offense. Pitching wise, you have one of the co-aces that's out, so that clearly hurts us. And we all know about the bullpen. One of the key stats that we're off on in pitching is the percentage of innings eaten up by starters. So you want 2/3 of the innings eaten up by starters. So 6 inning outings by your starters. We're going about 4 2/3. So we're leaving that bullpen vulnerable and exposed and stretching out those arms and getting into the bullpen early. So it's really important. I mean, you almost need a KZ to throw 9 on Friday.
No, that was one of our big problems in 2019 when we played the super regional at Arkansas. That whole year we never had a guy, or we had the guy go past 5 a couple of times, but typically it seemed like the guy would go about 5 innings and then you had to jump into a bullpen. And our bullpen by the end of the year was just just tired, and you could kind of see it. So those are interesting. To me, that's a very interesting piece to look at when, as you're trying to evaluate, a team at this point in the season.
Absolutely. And here's your breakdown on pitching. So anybody that wants to really get a read on this one, just go on the YouTube, stop and take a look. I've got it sorted out with Hoagland and Nikhazy's statistics together, and then them with Broadway. And those are all stats, conference plus non-conference. And then I've got the statistics when you take Hoagland and Nikhazy out. So you've got Broadway included and then without. And the one that really gets me is the team minus Hoagland, Nikhazy, and Broadway in conference play. So that's pretty much after Doug pitches on Friday night. If Broadway has to close it out 2 or 3 innings, you are looking at 2 games in the conference with a 7.75 ERA on staff. And the biggest increases in negative statistical value come with, you can expect the strikeout rates to go down with Nikhazy and Broadway being down. But if you look at the batting average, opposing average goes up almost 110 points. Walks per 9 goes up 1.5 per 9. So you're going to get 3 extra walks on the weekend in that scenario. And then you have another 1.7 home runs per 9. So you're giving up 3 or 4 more home runs than the combination of Hoagland, Nikhazy, Broadway give you. And of course, extra base hits are a couple extra base hits per 9 innings. So our bullpen guys, they've got good arms out there. I don't have the advanced analytics to make a definitive conclusion on this. Their walk rate's a little high, but they're not all over the place. So, I mean, they're probably catching a lot of plate. Talking with Anthony Cups today about this, and he said it'd be an interesting thing to look at how they're starting out. Are they starting out 1-0 or 0-1? Are they behind? So really, we've got to get somebody out of that pin with a shot of confidence to go deep in the postseason, because that's
well, and I think it's worth noting, Seth, you brought up a good point, and something in the Rays organization that we always used to talk through is it's the 1-1 pitch. And so as much as 0-1 and 1-0 matters, the difference is really going 2-1 and 1-2. And I know we're to the average listener, it may sound like we're splitting hairs just a little bit, but something that's unique about this show, we hope to give insights that are a little bit better than average, right? The difference is about 300 points from, and this is big league level, but 2-1 versus 1-2 is about 300 points difference from an average perspective. And so there has to be some sort of correlation there, right? Especially with the SEC, typically you think lots of big leaguers come out of the SEC. And so to your point, I would love to see that. One thing that we didn't really jump into that I want to touch on that's a positive for the Rebs coming up is Georgia swings it okay, but the good news is they're second from the bottom in the conference with home runs hit, right? So that may be something that we don't have to worry a ton about this weekend coming up.
Georgia coming in as the 4th team in the East, coming off a series loss at Florida. Played Friday night, lost 4-3 late in the game. Saturday, Florida kind of runs away with it 9-2, and then on Sunday, Georgia gets the win 6-1. They played early in the day and pull away with it. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm almost certain their Sunday guy is a young kid, a freshman, or maybe a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, I think you're right. A little bit more from a stats perspective, what to expect before we kind of sign off the stats page. Georgia is going to swing it towards the bottom of the conference at a 275, but however, I mean, they're going to pitch it really well. To Seth's breakdown, he just kind of showed you the full stats page. They're going to throw under 4. Okay, so they're going to throw a 3.9, which is top of the pack from an SEC perspective. And then behind those pitchers, they're going to field it up, at the top of the league at a 978. So when we start to slowly split hairs, and Seth, we've talked about this, when we try to make a point to always try and talk through where's the opposition going to be playing as far as the league rankings go. And people don't understand that 978 and 945, it doesn't sound like that huge of a difference, but that's a lot of errors in between those numbers. And so this is a team coming in that, they're going to fill it up and they're going to field it behind their guys. We hope that our arms can hold up and we can out hit them.
Yeah, they are. One thing I noticed about Georgia, obviously they did beat Vanderbilt 2 out of 3. They're 3-6 in conference series, but they have not been swept. So they're 12-15 in the conference, but not been swept. Neither has Ole Miss been swept. So we've done a good job historically being very difficult to sweep. Which, in my opinion, the best teams are the ones that are going to go win one on the road against the tough ones of the world, and they're going to win 2 out of 3 at home and get an occasional sweep. So Georgia's going to be tough. Like, I think that this is going to be a very intense weekend for them. They're kind of, to me, if they get hot in Hoover, if they make it to Hoover, because if they go 15-15, if they sweep us, they're going to go to Hoover. If they get hot there, then they're going to be on a bubble for the NCAA tournament. I really don't know that they would get in today at 12-15 and 29-21. But they've got that. Now they've got 2 bats in there that scare me, McAllister and Connor Tate. Both of them have very high isolated powers and on base plus slugging over 1,000. Reminds me of the old Georgia lineups in 04-05. They had a guy named Bobby Felmy, left-hander, and they had a right-hander named Josh Morris, 6'5", 240 kind of guy. But he was launching them over their trees there at Foley. So we got a couple bats that are good, and we've got some pitchers out there, a young rotation. Ryan Webb is their Friday guy. He's out for the season. So that's somebody that we're going to dodge. He's a lefty. But Sullivan, Woods are lefties, and you've got Cannon at the back end on Sunday. He's draft eligible, I believe. Big guy, throws 95, 96 at the top. So he doesn't have really impressive strikeout numbers, or he's not really missing a lot of bats. So I think that, I think if we go in there focused, we're going to hit like we do. But, we got to keep it together. We need Doug to go 8 or 9 and, win this series, because Georgia's going to be really focused.
What's your prediction?
I think we're going to take 2. I think Nikhazy will go in there and deal on Friday. Is it on Friday or Thursday? It's probably on Thursday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday series.
So if they stick with their rotation from last week when they played Florida, they threw a guy named Liam Sullivan on the first game against Florida. Big left-hander, average fastball velocity. He's got really high strikeout rate, but his numbers are bad. He's got an ERA at 6.5. He had a good start against Arkansas, but I think that a good goal for us is to go in there and win 2 out of 3. And if you get the sweep, you get the sweep. But Georgia's not been swept, so I'm gonna go to the casino and I'm gonna look at 9 out of 9. You're not getting swept, so yeah. I'm gonna take your 2 out of 3.
Pods, I'll say this. We talked about this several shows ago in a disappointing manner, but give credit where credit's due. We have fielded it. We talked about clean it up revs. We have fielded it extremely well since the inception of Throw It in the Dirt Pod. I think we have maybe 2 errors, maybe 3 errors now. I think we had 1 2-error game, but
yeah, and I think one of those was on the pitcher.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But we fielded it so much better. And I said, and Seth being a guy that's sabermetrics and all that, I think the thing back in the McDonald days that we did so well was we fielded it. So even though we hit well, even though they had teams that pitched it really well, we always were at the top of the league in fielding percentage. And I feel like that's something that, when you're looking for a hidden stat somewhere, that's one of those stats that you can go back to on a team that ends up making a run and say, they didn't beat themselves and they had a good offense, so they made a run. So I do want to highlight that. I'm again, like I said, I just think it's something that we've kind of turned around. We were bad for several weeks, and we were beating ourselves and losing some games. So moving into the second, stealing second here. We'll talk about SEC tournament bracket. SEC tournament obviously starts next week on Tuesday. The first day is a single elimination. Correct me if I'm wrong, the 5 through 12 seeds all play. Is that right? I believe that's right.
Yeah.
We are currently sitting. If it ended today, we would be sitting as the 6th seed. And that would put us playing either Texas A&M or Auburn. Please be Auburn. So we don't have to see Frizzell hit 15 home runs out of Hoover Met. But yeah, we go in as a 6th seed. As we've talked about, if I'm, and I think, and I don't want to steal Seth's thunder, but my mind is like a 1-2 tournament, win 1, lose 2. I think we probably win on Tuesday, whoever we play. We're going to have to throw a midweek type guy which scares you a little bit because you're looking, but maybe that's a Jack Doherty who didn't pitch a ton this weekend, pitched 2 innings. Maybe it's a Jack Doherty gets a shot and he goes out and shows you something that maybe puts him into a Saturday, Sunday role in a regional, maybe that happens. So I think, but I think our offense, I think our guys can hit enough to get us to into the actual double elimination bracket. And then again, from there, who knows really, but I would just say with the stats that we just looked at and the one that you had circled in red, I don't know that we have the bullpen to get, to get to a Sunday. I think we have the offense to get to a Sunday, but yeah, I'm not sure we have, but let me, somebody convince me something other.
I think that you read my mind. I was going to say, if you can't run Casey out there in the first game, which if the rest is too short, you wouldn't want to do that anyway. But that's a really good opportunity to get your guy that is a Will Klein kind of talent that's getting hit around. Sorry, Will, you did get hit around pretty good. 845, I think it was, 2005. Well, whatever. It's water under the bridge. But we need to get somebody out there that's shown promise. I mean, you could go, bullpen committee. You could run a Kimbrel Doherty out there. Get Nikhazy out there. You want to get one win, keep his arm good, and we'll see. I agree with you though. I think it's going to be tough to get.
You mentioned it, Seth, and teams that have World Series caliber runs, right? And if I think back, and I love watching Omaha, watch every game, and one of the things that always draws to my attention is the amount of pitchers used in a game. And for us, traditionally with an Ole Miss team, we're going to go starter. I pray to God he goes 9, and we don't have to use anybody in the bullpen. And that's just the mindset. It's not that we don't have the guys, but what about like a guy that, struggles with a big breaking ball, and we've got that big breaking ball guy and maybe doesn't have everything else to quite mix it up, right? We don't ever, when's the last time we ever played a matchup at Ole Miss? And I don't know that we ever have. And it seems like teams out there aren't afraid to do that. So something to keep in mind. I would love to see one day, maybe this SEC tournament, to your point, Seth, like kind of a pitch by committee on game 1, potentially. Let's bring some guys out there. Let's put them in spots to succeed, to thrive to their things that they do well, and see what happens. You signed them for a reason, right?
Yeah,
and that's always been the big thought process. Like, guys that you have on your team can pitch. It's not just a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a midweek starter / weekend reliever and a closer. And traditionally, that's how it's always been on an Ole Miss squad. You got 5 guys, and hopefully we can make those guys figure it out. I think we're kind of still searching for now we're searching for 3 guys, right?
Yeah.
But we were kind of searching for 4 and 5 here past.
I always thought it would be nice to have one of those little right-handed stone skipper types that you run out and throw some of the 84-mile-an-hour stuff and keep people off balance. Warren Spahn's one of the greatest of all time, and he said that great pitching is just upsetting the hitter's timing. So we do have the system, and we get most of our pitchers are 6'3 plus. They throw 92 plus, and some of your teams. I mean, I remember one year LSU came into Oxford in 04. I mean, they were hitting balls 115 miles an hour, 6 feet off the ground, off the wall. I mean, just all over us. Tennessee Tech, we remember that. So, I mean, it's also a left-handed specialist. We had Tommy Baumgartner back in 05 come out, and he wasn't really a specialist. He was an innings eater. We had Anthony Cups out of the bullpen late in 05. He started opening day for us that year. So, I mean, that was the caliber of depth we had in those days.
Yeah. Well, and, I'll say it really quick because we didn't need to keep moving, but one of the bright spots, I think, last night, Wednesday or Tuesday night was Brandon Johnson, came in and threw really well. And there's been a lot of chatter since then about, is that your Broadway type for next year? Is he your closer or something like that? I'd love to see him, get some more innings. He throws it hard. He's got to develop a second pitch, and potentially even a third pitch. But I think he threw a curveball in high school, and now he's been told to throw a slider because that's what you throw. But anyway, so
Speaking of third pitches, before we get into the fun, can we get some change-ups? If you're listening, let's get some change-ups in the mix. Like 50-50 fastball breaking ball. I need a Will Klein, pull the string. Like, you talk about timing, Seth.
Yeah.
Let's mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's start pulling some strings, a little bit more.
That's what Kimbrel.
Will might have been an exception. I can't remember, because his changeup was so good. Stephen Head also had a great changeup. Will was 89 to 91. He bump a little bit higher, and his changeup was just Bugs Bunny. Stephen Head, he was same velocity. He was 88 to 90, and he would throw 71. I mean, it was just really nasty. Same arm speed. But Coach Bianco in those days, and probably the same now, I obviously haven't paid as close of attention as I used to, being right behind home plate every game. But he was big time against same hand changeup. So right-hander pitching as a right-handed hitter, so I got, 2021 at the time. I'm like, well, clearly, nobody throws same hand changeups, and I'm watching Major League Baseball. It's like they're doing it all the time. So if you're righty on righty and you throw fastball, curveball, changeup, and you're not allowed to throw your changeup, you've only got 2 pitches. Okay. And if your curveball's
right.
not
and the reason he hates that is he's afraid that we're going to hit guys. Traditionally, from a pitching standpoint, we're going to roll it, right? We're going to pronate in and roll it. And typically when you do that, your miss is an arm side miss. And so to his point, like, he hates hitting guys, right? Why does he hate that?
I think what happened, and I asked him one time, and I think I might have actually asked Coach Bunn, because you never knew, like, in the middle of everything, if it was a good idea to ask Coach Bianco. But I think I asked Bunn. And I think once upon a time, it might have been at McNeese State, or early on, there was a high pressure situation, and we called righty change up, and the hitter's out in front of it and hooks it around the foul pole or something like that. Just ran into it. It was the same thing. It's like where we don't like to switch up the pitching rotation on the regionals, because we lost in 04 when we did that, even though we lost 1-0. So I think that's it. But if you can't locate your curveball, I mean, you threw a 12-6 curveball, Wade. I remember that thing. If you weren't, you could always tell, and so could your catcher, if you didn't have a handle on that thing. If it wasn't biting, you couldn't bury it with 2 strikes. Well, then guess what pitch you only have? You have a fastball. Right. And if it's the 6th, 7th inning and you're running on fumes and you're throwing 87, well, look out.
Awesome. Well, to that note of 05 regional, D1 Baseball's regional host came out this week with Kendall Rogers' group, or is it Aaron Fitt? I can't remember. I can never remember which was which. D1 Baseball came out, though, and it had Oxford hosting a regional, Ole Miss, the number 1 seed, Georgia Tech, the 2 seed, Southeast Missouri State, the 3, and South Alabama, the 4. Traditionally, I would love that. I would love that regional. I'd take that right now in a heartbeat, without even knowing anything about Georgia Tech, really, other than traditionally they have a good program. And South Alabama traditionally has a good program, as does Southeast Missouri State. So, like I said earlier, I think if we win at least one this weekend, we are a lock. We might even be a lock, if we get swept. But I think we have to win the 1. And then 2, I think 2 doesn't. 2 is, I think it gives us some momentum. That's about it. And then obviously a sweep would be huge. But any thoughts about the regional there? But you said it earlier, Seth. We threw off in 05 or 04. But I think because of Nikhazy and needing him to pitch against potentially the 2 seed on Saturday night, I personally think we need to throw off against a 4 seed, but that's just me. Who else?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we need to dig down in the rotation a little bit and go at a 4 seed with somebody other than Nikhazy. That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, because if South Alabama played us on a Tuesday night, came up from Mobile and played us on a Tuesday night, we would throw Brandon Johnson or Mallets.
Critics of that idea are going to say, well, you rolled the dice and you lost. But the point is to win the regional. I think it's just like playing blackjack. I don't want to hit that 16. But the odds are the dealer's going to make a hand as I'm sitting there on my 16. So the statistics say I'm more likely to win the hand by taking a card, even if I bust. So that's the thing. It's like, I think that you got to play this thing to win the regional, because
say that again.
So a 16,
I'm kidding.
you got to hit that hand.
Yeah.
Because the dealer's going to make a hand, and you want to get a 21.
What he's saying is we're leaving here and we're meeting in Atlantic City, and we're gonna have a bender and make a
I
bunch
would
of
rather meet across the river in Oklahoma than I would Atlantic City.
And by Oklahoma, he means Tunica.
Well, Oklahoma does have one right over the line. In Texas, we don't have gambling.
Oh,
So, but yeah, I think you got to play to win the regional, and I think you figure out maybe even a bullpen by committee game with the 4 seed, especially if you've got a really strong offense as your 2 seed, because that we won't get that draw. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? That's just a mock. I doubt we'll get it.
Yeah, no,
we'll end up with whoever the hottest team in the nation is the 2 seed and the 4 seed.
Well, and I love the prediction that you just gave, way better than the prediction of show 1, which I think Clemson was our 2 seed.
Yeah.
You don't want those. You don't want those guys coming in as a 2. It's typically, it seems like it's always been like, Clemson as a 2 seed, Middle Tennessee as a 3, and then like FIU or somebody crazy for a 4, and it's like this powerhouse regional. So
you don't want any 4 seed from Florida. I know that.
No. we want that prediction. Bring it on, and we'll play it tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna move in. We got about probably 30 minutes, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less. And Seth, thank you for coming on. We want to kind of get a little bit of obviously you got some good stories, but we want to catch up on you a little bit first. Seth and I were, like I said before he came on, student managers together. And Seth, from day one, I think our coaching staff knew like this guy is our secret weapon from a statistic standpoint. He was like our Billy Bean ball or money ball before like that was kind of really even a thing for college. And it was just incredible. And meanwhile I'm out there like digging out dirt plugs, and Seth's like running numbers in the in the locker room or whatever, and Ian's doing God knows what. But before we go there, so tell us, you come to Ole Miss from Hillcrest, right? Mm-hmm. Did you know the Hillcrest crew in high school? I'm assuming you did.
I did, yeah. The good Lord gave me, a lot of people look at me like that guy's one of their pitchers. And well, I'm not.
You did look like Matt Maloney. You and Matt Maloney had very similar body types.
I topped out at 71 in the Minute Maid Park, speed gun that probably wasn't right. I don't know, maybe it was 85. But I tried out for our baseball team in high school, and I was really clumsy, heavy in middle school, and I shot up, and I was about 6'3" in the 9th grade, and I went out and tried out for our baseball team. And Hillcrest always had a great team, and for a couple of the years there, we were a nationally ranked program. And I didn't make the team, and that's not really a shame either. I mean, there's only so many spots, and it's a great program. But our coach, Paul Wachowski, Coach Y. Wade, did you ever meet Coach Y?
I did.
Yeah,
awesome dude.
Yeah, he's hardcore and he's old school, and it's awesome. Looking back at it seemed like he was real hard on the players, but like nobody looks back at that negatively. Like a lot of mentally tough players. I didn't make the team, but he knew about the money ball mind. And he kept me around, and really it wasn't nearly as advanced as when I, the stuff I helped out the coaches with. I mean, we started after my first year, we really took off like doing more advanced analytics and understanding stuff. We got into computers. My first year at Ole Miss, it was kind of just keeping up with inter squads and updating the fan base online, which is one of my stories about Coach B. But I got to know Coach McDonald when he was scouting our players. And I wrote down a list. I've got no less than 8 guys that went from Hillcrest to play at Ole Miss. Before my time, before Seth Smith's time, you had Glenn Morris and you had Dustin Clyburn. And you also, you had Bradley Lum walked on in the middle, but you had this string of 5 years in a row out of Hillcrest. You had scholarship guys. So in 2001, you had Seth Smith. Seth Smith, of course, was an all-state athlete in 4.
Freshman all-SEC, yeah.
Exactly. Then you had Stephen Head in 2002. You had Brett Jones in 2003. He's like the George Lazenby, James Bond, he's like the answer to the trivia question on Her Majesty's Secret Service, by the way. Logan Power in 2004, Cody Satterwhite in 2005. So you had this big stretch, and I overlapped with all 5 of those guys when I was at Hillcrest. So I really wound up at Ole Miss because I wanted to be a sports agent. I never had any ties to the interstate rivalries with Mississippi State or Ole Miss. My family's not from Mississippi, so I had a sober mind on all that. And I was, wanted to be a sports agent at one time. I got to know the Ole Miss coaches because they'd come scout our guys, and it seemed to me, talking to Coach Mack, that they would find something to do with me there, and I wanted to be part of a program. And that's where that came from. And I came on in fall of 03 and started just tracking basic stats. And, over the course of time, like I started to get involved in analytics with Coach Bunn, evaluating our pitchers. And then, of course, the next year you had the Keshel Cup with Coach Lake. So things picked up as I was able to showcase some different perspectives.
So the Keshel Cup, really quick, give us the short version. So I remember all that because Coach Lake was a guy that he loved those type statistics. He wanted to know more about, how can we be a little bit better? How can we be 1% better every day in some area? And what are the areas that we need to improve in? And so he came to you and you guys created this Keshel Cup that was, essentially, we pushed in the fall. And it was part of our fall ball and part of our, what we did as a program. So talk through that really quick.
That Keshel Cup idea came around fall of 04. And if you recall, and this was the year you and I were both on the team at 04.
Yeah.
We hosted our first regional, so obviously a huge accomplishment. And that was a very talented team too. Now, keep in mind the 05 team I said is the most talented. It didn't even have the longest standing Major League Baseball player, which was Seth Smith, who played parts of 11 seasons in the show. So, like, that's a pretty tall calling, the 05 team to be even more talented. And Matt Tolbert was a big leaguer. He was on 04, but not 05.
Right.
But if down the stretch, so the 04 team started out, I believe, 19-1, 7-2 in the league at one point, and then hit a big pothole in the middle, lost 6 in a row, then got
at Georgia.
And got hot again. And went down, swept Florida. And then we came home to play LSU, and we got a huge victory, like on Friday night. Holloman, started that game. He wasn't particularly sharp, but LSU was really good that year. And then the next 2 games, like, we were looking forward to going out and win the series because we were fighting for the conference title, and they absolutely buried us. I mean, we're talking about just rockets from gap to gap. Like, it was absolute. It was Matt Maloney and Anthony Cups, like, and it was just they were locked in. But those are 2 games there. Then we went 2 in barbecue at the SEC tournament. Then we also did the same at our first regional. We lost to Western Kentucky, and then we came out the next day and we lost, I believe it was to Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Washington and Tulane were the 2 other teams there, and I think
that's right.
Tulane won the regional. That was Tim Lincecum played for Washington. We didn't face him, but
they had Brian Bogusevic, who was a big lefty that played in the league.
Yep. Yeah. So we had those last 2 games there in the regional after we'd lost 2 against LSU and lost 2 straight in the conference tournament. Those last 2 games were like the Roman Coliseum. I mean, like, audible booing, it was the frustration was so bad, like, with our hitters. Like, I mean, we weren't really not hitting, but we weren't catching any breaks, and other teams were getting timely hits. So our hitters were really over eager, chasing everything. And, like, the approach at the plate just disintegrated, like, the last few games of the year. And that was a focus. Like, I remember going to fall ball the next year, and Coach Lake was like, we need to talk about, like, the approaches, like, to do more quality at bats. Like, we were swinging at first pitch junk in the dirt, like, constantly. And then we developed the Keshel Cup, which was a points-based system that was designed to make these hitters competitive and go up there. And even when you're making it out, you can make productive outs, ground the ball to the right side, move the runner up, 7 pitch at bat. So you look at guys like Doug Nikhazy. Well, one really good way to do better against Ole Miss, if you're our opponents, is to grind him down. I mean, there's so many strikeouts in baseball today that, if he goes out there and strikes out 12 guys and walks 3, gives up a couple base hits, and, he's going to be at 100 pitches. He's been at the 100 pitch mark 5th, 6th inning. So, if you can string these pitchers out. So those were things that we did, and, like, it instantly took place. And I ran the stats on this one year, not too long ago. We went from the middle of the pack, bottom of the pack in offense, like in runs, home runs, doubles, to top quarter of everything, runs and home runs, batting average. Like, it was, the 2005 team was really good. And that was without Matt Tolbert, without Seth Smith, without Charlie Babineau. So those were things. I think our hitters were very heavily engaged. Cooper Osteen won the first one. Alex Presley won one. Kleeman, I believe, won. I think Petway might have won one too in the spring of 05. But that was a really cool system, and it went to the Citadel, it went to College of Charleston, and now it's at South Carolina. So it's something that's kind of made its rounds, and it's just a quality at bat system designed at getting people to focus up there.
That's awesome. We got to get Osteen. I've got to get with him and get him on. That guy was just awesome, and such a good defender and the nicest human being ever. I mean, we got to get Osteen on. So when we had Klein on last week, Klein told a story. I don't know if you've watched. I'm assuming you watched or listened, either one. He told a story about you guys playing catch in the outfield. And he said he hit you in the shin. And he's like, you need to ask Seth about it and get his take on that.
Well, first off, that field that we were playing catch on, it is you should win some sort of bravery award to even be down the line playing catch, because that thing it's like a high school field. And our pitchers would sit on the bluffs behind the fence and catch all these home runs. I mean, these are just massive bombs, like going out left and right. Babineau get out there back in 04, and all these guys would just launch. Well, me and Will are playing catch, and of course, like he told his story, he flips some breaking ball at me, and it completely missed my glove. Completely. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the most graceful defender that's out there. And honestly, I would say that's taking advantage of your stats guy. But this thing completely missed my glove, hit me square in the shin, probably 4 or 5 inches below my kneecap, and bounced all the way back to Will. And he laughed so hard he couldn't even continue to play catch with me. So yeah, he said that thing stayed around a while. He's not kidding. So I went off in the Army after college, and I got deployed to Afghanistan, and I was the nighttime intelligence officer for 8 months out of the 12 I was deployed. And we were out in the middle of a desert. This was March of 2011. And I go walking out of the operations tent, and we built these wooden duck boards, walkways around the tent, so we're not walking around a gravel. And they frosted over, like it got down to like 30 degrees or something at night, and they frosted up. And I went slipping off the end of one of these runways. It was like Home Alone, where the crooks, they fly up and land flat on their back. I flew up 220 pounds, came straight down on my ankle. And I'm sitting there in March, 3 months to go in this deployment. I was like, I think I'm probably going to Germany and back home today, because I didn't think I was going to be able to walk. I went over to the physician assistant's tent, and he pulled the pant leg up and wanted to take a look, and he saw this calcified knot deposit, and he wanted to know what that was. And I had to remember that was when Will Klein decided to throw probably a 75-mile-an-hour slider off of my shin bone. So that stayed with me for a long time. I don't think I have it with me anymore. I was looking for it the other day, and I might have even showed it to you. But if he would have thrown a slider that good the next year against Mississippi State to Jeff Flagg, that ball might not have got knocked off the band practice field like it was. I travel so much for work. I was flying to Ohio the other day, and I looked out the window, and I was a little bit worried that I was going to see that home run ball out next to the point. So yeah, Will really did me dirty there.
That was the karma gods getting him back. I would love to know, Seth, being a stat guy, was there ever a time in your career where you maybe gave B some stats, or you were trying to give him some information and maybe it wasn't well received, or get into a good story around kind of your role at Mississippi State?
Well,
at Ole Miss. Sorry,
I got
the flag home run is haunting me as well.
You remember that thing? 485 easy. So Coach Bianco's stories. First off, these are all fun. Every player has some great Coach Bianco stories. I've heard some stuff even from the 2001 guys about when he was really a fire breather. I heard a game about a tie game against Western Kentucky one time where they ran foul poles for 3 hours and they weren't even allowed to go to the bathroom. But Coach Bianco, I've got a couple that were not good for me. I got one that turned out very well for me. I remember one time, 2004 was when we really started to get fashionable. We rolled out red jerseys to play Vanderbilt on Friday night. I'm sure Brandon actually personally handed them out in the locker room.
Yeah, we did. It was one of the cooler moments of my time there.
Those were really sharp. And then I think in 05 was the year we rolled out the gray hats and we had gray road uniforms. We had the pinstripes, which personally are my favorite. I like the traditional pinstripe.
I actually still have the red mock-up that has Bianco on the back with a different number. I have it somewhere in my house.
You had the reds, you had the blue ones, then you had the pinstripes, and you had the grays came in, I believe, 05. And I remember going out there in the dugout one day before a game. Sometimes like Coach Bianco's around, like he's so intense, you don't know how to read him. And he's like you never know like if it's a good time to volunteer information you have. And I said, hey, Coach B, did you know that we're 3-1 when we wear this jersey? And he, he looks at me like, he's got his sunglasses on. He just kind of looks and doesn't say anything. And so I don't know how to read it. And then like I'm sitting there like I've got my computer and I'm punching in stuff in my computer, and Coach B comes up next to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder like this, and he goes, I don't need you running around getting our guys all psychological about what color uniform we're going to wear. You freaking understand? So that was one where I try to get some, special analytics out there that did not go over so well.
Keep that to yourself. That's like our current grades. We're like 0-25 in our current grades.
It used to not be that
Seth,
way.
I don't know if you remember those grades, but Klein and I discussed those last week, and those are actually the gray coats that like were worn in the Civil War, like the thickest wool jerseys. I really think they were 100% wool, and like you were trying to pitch, and like it reminded a kid off of the Christmas Story that couldn't put his arms down.
Yeah, that's a great one. There was one time in fall of 03, my very first semester working for the team. And this is before my role got like, analytical, like where I'm helping like piece together pitching performance summaries and Keshel Cup. This was like, you're the guy that sits there and you keep the book in the dugout. You're going to submit these statistical summaries to me just so I can track how these pitchers are doing. And you have the special duty. Jeff Roberson is going to give you a password to update the Ole Miss Spirit message board on weekend inter squad summaries. So that way the subscribers can be like, hey, that's great. Mark Holloman's really coming along well. Oh, Stephen Head's hitting 350. Like, I think he's going to have a good year. It's just some content. So I'd go on there after the games and I type a statistical summary. I put a box score on there, and my handle was Walker J. So I didn't really, for a smart guy, this was not my best moment of common sense, but that's obviously Walker Jones. I guess, what was he, the assistant athletic director in 2003, Brandon?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was obviously a well-known athlete at Ole Miss.
Right. Yeah, played football here. He's a
right. So that was the handle they gave me to go into Ole Miss Spirit and update the board. Well, so there was a tradition at Ole Miss football where during practice, when the visiting team was kicking field goals and extra points, if the ball went up in the student section, what happened to the ball? Like the students would throw the ball,
right? You throw it all around,
section, eventually throw it out of the stadium.
Right.
I've got a decent throwing arm. It's not great. My spirals are a little bit wobbly, but I had a Arkansas practice extra point come to the guy right next to me, like perfect, like caught it perfect, and he didn't want to get thrown out because Cobra security was running around like the Waffen SS. And not that they're the Waffen SS, but that's how intense they were. I can just see this going live now. Anyway, my buddy caught it and immediately reflexively just handed me the ball. And I was so excited to get the ball and so into the game. The team started getting hot, and I turned around and I launched a spiral, and it was the best throw I ever made in my life. And this thing hit some lady who was taking a big swig of her Coke and went, exploded everywhere. This Cobra security guy must have weighed 300 pounds, came and grabbed me like this and like literally like threw me out of the stadium. So I had to go buy a ticket and sit by myself over by the band, like, and watch Speed Arkansas. But I was so mad about that. I was looking at the message board later, and they were talking about Cobra security on there, and I'm sitting here with my Walker J handle, and I comment about Cobra security and like how it's like ridiculous, like the way they act and like treat the students. And on Monday I go into what was that hall that they used to have the office at before the nice one got built?
Um,
It was right there by the fraternity houses.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, but so the baseball office used to be on a little.
It's right across from Bishop, but I can't remember what it's called.
Well, so I would always go in there. Katie Harrison used to work in there, and Coach Lake had his office. Coach Matt, Coach B had his office. And ever know like when you're in trouble, like people just kind of look at you like somebody needs to see you. Like, and it was like Monday. I went in there and I'm like, "Hey, Coach Lake, how's it going?" And he's like, and Coach Lake's like the friendliest guy. We've always been friends. And he's like, "I think you might want to either leave or, plan to see Coach B sometime." And like I hear Seth, and I I walk into Coach Bianco's office and he's got a printout of the message board. And he let me have it up and down, left and right. Like I better not ever see this again, or like you're not going to be back. So that was a memory I will never forget. And then there was a time in 2006 when we were in the SEC tournament, and Coach Bianco's a very business oriented guy. So I'm sitting around, and the SEC tournament was weird because we stayed at that, that one hotel that's connected to the mall. I don't even remember what hotel was that.
Winfrey.
Yeah. And the teams, the tournament was so extensive that you had games that were starting at 11 p.m.
Right.
And you'd have teams that would wake up and they'd sit for 10 hours before they'd go play, and you just sit in your hotel room or go walk around the mall. Well, Coach like I'm rooming with JoJo Tan, and the phone rings. Seth, Coach B, and I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, how's it going, Coach B? And he's like, I need you in my room right now. And like I had no idea like what was going on. Like this is something that I didn't anticipate, but we're getting ready to play Arkansas. 2 weeks before that, we played Arkansas at home. And they had a left-hander who that year in 2006 was the conference pitcher of the year. His name was Nick Schmidt. He was a big left-hander with a good fastball. He threw in the low 90s, and he was drafted high, but his injuries ruined his career. But he was made for the big leagues. I mean, he had the right build, the right arm. Like, he was great. And he absolutely shoved it against us on Friday in Oxford. I think they beat us like 12 to 3 or 13 to 2 or something like that. 11 Ks in 7 innings. So Coach B gets me up there. He's like, I need you to pull out that computer, and I need you to pull up everything you got on Schmidt. So like me and Coach B, like it's like one of these like World War II movies, like shoving everything off the desk, and it's like disconnect the phone, and I'm sitting there like spitting out all these reports, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, if this goes badly and Schmidt repeats his performance against us, then I'm out of here. And so anyway, we put together a game plan. Like we pinpointed this guy perfect. We took his fastball away. Like he walked 4 guys. He gave up. I mean, he's a tough guy to hit, but we got 6 hits off him, knocked him out pretty early, and we beat him. Will Klein won that game. Satterwhite closed it out with 3 innings. I just looked at the box score today. But we sat there, me and Coach B, and made a game plan against Nick Schmidt the day of the game against Arkansas. And I was not expecting that, given how business-minded Coach Bianco sounded, but it turned out well.
I think sometimes he doesn't get credit for that. I think some, people look at our team sometimes and they go like, oh, we don't have a plan, or we don't have this or that. Like, sometimes the Jimmies and the Joes just don't execute the plan that you put in front of them. It's just simple as that. Sometimes they do. And, I think he's always been a guy that, especially in a moment like that, where he's frustrated, where someone has done something against us and we didn't turn out, it didn't pan out so well. I'd love to see his win percentage when like we play someone again, like the SEC tournament or something like that. I'd be interested to see like how different that is. Maybe you can do that and come back on at some point. So really quick, we may, we're against it right now, but I want to hear what's your funniest like team story, or teammate guy, like whatever. What's your something you remember, memorable and funny? Give us a good go there.
Well, I've got 4 funny quick stories, like Will was telling there at the end, that I wrote down here that I wanted to tell. Well, 5. So roommates were always fun. I was the stat guy, Chris Coughlin will be the first guy to tell you. And he's got a YouTube video. I saw a YouTube video with Chris talking about how back in the day he was a little more brash and cocky and stuff like that. And he was. I got roomed with Chris on the 2004 trip to Georgia, where we got swept, where we were red hot. There was no beating us, and we lost 3 in a row just out of nowhere.
I was with you because Bray Wright started that Saturday game and was like unhittable for like 3 innings, and then all of a sudden just lost it, and then it was just over.
Yeah, and we that was also the weekend of the NFL draft where Eli Manning became a professional. So I remember everybody sitting around watching that. And I was rooming with Coughlin, and I was 19. So of course I was like, well, we can do this better. We can do that. We lost on Friday, and I'm laying there in bed talking to Chris, and he's like, Keshel, shut up. And then Saturday we lost again. It's like, dude, we can't get swept. Like, I can't believe it. And it's like, dude. And so we had Chris Coughlin, my roommate. Then I had Luke Barthel in Tennessee 05. And Luke was fast. I mean, he could shut the lights off and get in bed before the room got dark. But Petway hit a ball off of Luke Hochaver in the ninth inning. I think it got us within one run. That ball, it was close to the Will Klein home run with Jeff Flagg, but not quite. But that thing was a rocket. And then we got another guy on second, and Barthel went in a pinch run, and like the catcher got up first pitch, like threw a rocket down to second, picked him off, like with the game like in the balance. And I was rooming with Luke, and Luke was like laying in the bed, trying to figure out how he was going to hitchhike back home. Like, he was so like worried about this, and I was just trying to like help him feel better about it. It's a team effort. But and then JoJo, I guarantee you JoJo's going to listen to this interview. But I roomed with him at the conference tournament in 06, and I was super motivated about ROTC. Like, I was big time into working out every day. And I had Lee Greenwood, Proud to Be an American, as my alarm, and that thing went off at 6:30 every morning. And yes. JoJo had to listen to it. And that was something that we still talk about all these years later. So you got Barry Gunther with Vanderbilt. 04, the game that you handed out those red jerseys, the very first game. Jeremy Sowers pitched for Vanderbilt, first round pick.
Yep.
We had a tie game going into the bottom. It's probably the bottom of the ninth. And they had a closer named Ryan Root, big right-hander, low to mid-90s fastball, intimidating. I mean, he looked like he was 35. And Barry comes up there. And, Barry's a strong guy. Like, he's very fit, but there's a lot that goes into hitting for power or not. But he goes up there, and, like, Root supplies all the power with this fastball, like 93, 94. And Barry just pops that. I think it might have been the first pitch. And he walked down the first baseline like the Statue of Liberty, like halfway down, and then flipped the bat up like these students tossing all the beer in the student section. Walked it off, and we wound up sweeping them. Like, we somehow had a really sloppy win on Saturday. They kicked the ball around. We won that. But the next year at Nashville, we beat them on Friday. They beat us on Saturday, and then on Sunday, they took a lead late against us, and they put Roop in to close it out. And that was the game David Price started, where I first discovered David Price. And he was absolutely nasty. I think it was that third game. But Roop came in to close out the series. And Barry Gunther finished the game on deck. He didn't get to hit. So, like, they won the game, like, before Barry got to bat. And I remember sitting on the bus and looking at Barry, and Barry was like, I was so worried about coming up to bat against Roop after last year, worried about taking one in the ear hole. And I'll never forget that.
That was I told Barry this because we've reconnected since, and we're gonna have him on at some point. And I told him that my first like chill moment, like chills all over your body, and you're just like, wow, this is awesome, was that Friday night Vanderbilt when he hit that home run. I remember sitting in the dugout and just, I mean, it was nuts, and like everybody was out on the field. I was out on the field celebrating. I mean, it was awesome. It was just that moment where you're just like, this is what SEC baseball is right here. We take that, big win. So it was awesome.
I remember that it felt like he was going to get it. Coach, no stories are complete without Coach Bunn's stories either. We had one in 04. And Coach Bunn's obviously a very motivating guy. You can't be around him and not want to try to do something better. But we, in 04, we had a pre-conference series against, I think it was Nicholls State, but we shut them out 3 games in a row. So 27 innings, no runs, and just completely dominant pitching. And then we came out midweek. I can't remember who we played, but it was not a good team, and we were beating the absolute crap out of them. And then in the 9th inning, we put in Taylor Fowler. So Taylor Fowler was nasty if we knew where the ball was going to go. Like he was, for those of you listening at home, Taylor was a slight left-hander from Arkansas, and he had a crossfire like really quirky delivery. Arm slot was low, like almost sidearm. Like the ball looked like it came upward, downward. I mean, you didn't know where it was going. Sliders, mid to high 80s, and he goes in there and it's something like strikeout, strikeout, and then it's like hit by pitch, walk, base hit, and then ball to the backstop, and a run comes in, and it's a 10-run game. You know, everybody's gone. Old Swayze Field was a like a bunker. You know, all that cold air just collected there at home plate, and you could hear everything, and you could hear also Coach Bunn with a metal fungo up against the tunnel, screaming everything, like so mad that we lost that shutout. It would have been a 36-inning shutout, and I'm sitting up there in the stands trying to control myself about this. But the whole time he was sitting there at the top step, like Captain Morgan, like waiting on Taylor Fowler to throw the shutout, and the ball goes to the backstop. So, and of course that year we had the famous fight against Florida, and so unfortunately a lot of the guys that are in my year group that redshirted weren't there. You know, like Alex Presley was there. He played that year, but Will redshirted, so he probably wasn't there unless he traveled down on his own. But we played Florida in 04, and we swept them. And they were hot, and we were hot. And this was after the midseason scuffle. And we beat them on Friday, then we beat them on Saturday, and came out on Sunday, and we got up like 5-0, like quick. And Charlie Babineau comes up, I think it's like top of the 4th inning, and he hits a chopper over to third base. And typical easy 5-3 put out, and they're going around the horn, and their second baseman Adam Davis, who gets the ball from first, and he crow hops it on one hop across our dugout, hits Jeremy Zick right in the nose, like broke his nose.
I remember that, yeah.
His nose. So this had all happened. This was all precipitated by Ryan Kuklinski and Zan Barksdale sitting there talking complete trash because Florida had this thing where, and it was in the papers and everything, where all their players grew these pencil-thin mustaches because they had won like 4 straight conference series. And they weren't going to shave them until they lost. So we beat them on Friday, we beat them on Saturday. So guess who comes out on Sunday clean shaven? So Kuklinski and Zan are in the dugout screaming at him. You got no mustache. Where's your stash? It's like, I mean, it's just like, they'd heard enough of this because they're down and they're frustrated. They start this fracas, and I'm in the stands doing my thing with the gun and charting all this stuff. And this is a Sunday game that started at like 12 at a party campus, but Florida, obviously a lot of senior citizens, they sang every single word of the national anthem. I mean, you're talking about just some upstanding folks. And here's this massive brawl that starts. So like all of our pitchers like go after their little 5'5" third baseman. They've got a pitching coach, Ross Jones, this guy was 6'5", 350. I'm not kidding you. Rumbling across the field. Like Coach Bunn said, he was tucked down in the dugout thinking about delivering a forearm shiver to the side. But there was this huge expletive-laden fracas, push and shove, like right in front of this really patriotic crowd. I'll never forget. And then they wound up tying the game, and we won it in extra innings. Barry Gunther hit a home run where they were. I mean, it was a thriller. It was kind of like one of these where we're trying to hold on with the bullpen. But that was one of my funnest memories, going down there and watching that.
Yeah, I remember that. I'd forgotten about that until you just said it. I was on that trip, and I do remember the Jeremy Zick getting hit in the nose because I was like feeding him towels because his nose would not stop bleeding. It was unbelievable. I was like, this guy's going to bleed to death in our dugout. So last thing, just because I do think, you've done some interesting things since you left Ole Miss and since, our time, with Ole Miss baseball. When you left, like what was your story from then till now, kind of in a nutshell? I know you had family that were all, in the armed services, and obviously you've done that as well, but kind of walk us through that to kind of close it out.
Well, so that story would probably start in 05 when MVP Baseball 2005 came out on PlayStation, and I took 2 weeks off to play it. And that semester I delivered a 2.3 GPA, which was way off of my norms. I mean, I'm like a 350 hitter, and I came out and hit like 190. And at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Nothing business-wise appeal, even though I'm in business now. But like, I didn't have any idea. Like, I didn't want to sit behind a cubicle and do banker stuff or anything like so. I started giving some thought to that, and around 2006 timeframe, I started gravitating towards ROTC. Was it going to be the Air Force or was it going to be the Army? I tried Air Force first, but I've got a lot of hearing loss in one ear, so the Air Force is a lot more particular about who they let in. But the Army's got 2 wars going on. We need everybody. So I signed up for ROTC in the fall of 06, and I was still working for the team. So that was after the super regional team in 06. And I was a senior, but I was a 4th-year senior. I did 5. But I did my thing in the fall with Coach B. We did the Keshel Cup, and I got so committed into ROTC, and like I knew that I was no longer going to be able to make all of the games, like I always had. And like to me, it's either all or nothing. And I didn't want to start getting where I couldn't meet obligations, so I left the program. And I remember the day, January of 07, I went in there and gave Coach B a letter, and I sat there and like, it was sad. I mean, like, you know, a lot of the guys had no idea I was going to go anywhere. Like CJ Ketchum, I remember wrote me a note about it, but I had to, and I committed myself to Army ROTC. And a year and a half later, May of 08, I became an officer in the Army. So they commission you right there, and you become a lieutenant in the Army. I went off in the Army. I went to Oklahoma, then I went to Arizona, and I became an Army intelligence officer. So people think military intelligence sounds like James Bond, and you know, most of the time I just let them. So like if I'm at a sales call, I'll let people think I'm James Bond all day long. It's almost as cool as Apache pilot. That's the one that really gets them. But so I was an intelligence officer in the Army. I got assignments in Texas. I got deployed to Afghanistan, came back to Arizona. I got one in Alaska, and I eventually made the rank of captain, which most people, if you're not a complete moron, you will make the rank of captain. And I did 5.5 years in the Army, and I got out and moved to Texas. So now I'm just your rank and file veteran businessman, and I've been in oil and gas, I've been in healthcare, and now I work in the transportation industry. But the military background really served me well, and like I was well employed based on my analytical mindset. Developed a lot of, you know, like, and I think being around so many athletes at Ole Miss, like that's the beauty of the military and athletics, it's competition, you know, and like even the guys that don't play much, like they're key cogs of the team. I mean, I mentioned Ryan Kuklinski. He was a huge cog of the team for 5 years, you know, and Bradley Lum was a great teammate. He was one of the Hillcrest guys. He doesn't get all the accolades, but he was always out there sucking up innings and inter squads and, you know, doing all kinds of important work. So that stuff sharpens you as a person, makes you tougher. Like really the worst thing in my life that's going to happen now is I'm going to miss a sale that I thought I was going to make. Nobody's going to die. You know, we're not going to lose a couple $1 million of property. So I think that if you figure out all that competition stuff, well, it serves you well. Like most of the players that were on our teams are very successful folks. Like they're successful parents, they're successful business people. And that's almost without exception. I mean, they've all moved on to do great things. They got scouts out there, Justin, Steven, they're scouts. And that's what I went off to do.
Awesome. Well, Wade, any closing
Thank you
thoughts
for your service first.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I know I'm not supposed to do that. I'm a civilian.
Yeah, we don't say it enough. But dude, this was awesome. I loved it. I certainly thank you for hopping on. The stats were amazing. And I love the story. Again, our goal is to bring a different perspective that nobody else does, and to be unique. And I certainly think that you helped us achieve our goal today.
Well, I really appreciate y'all having me on. It's always fun to talk baseball. And Wade, I remember that fall 06 inter squad season. You had your Anthony Cup style 12-6 curveball, and you hung one so bad to Justin Henry, and he missed it. Like, I mean, that thing moved so much, he just swung right through it. And I always remember that pitch. That pitch is literally frozen in my mind.
That's awesome.
I'm glad that I got a little carve of your CPU there. I'll take it.
Wade's the awesome. Well, thanks again. One more time, our social media, and obviously, you know, follow Seth. He's on Twitter, Facebook. I don't know if you're on any of the other channels, but make sure you follow us. Facebook.com/dirt_pod. Follow us on Twitter. It's @dirt_pod. And we'll have
it's a different Seth Keshel on OnlyFans.
That sounds good.
Kidding.
All right, awesome. Well, until next time, thanks again, Seth. Thanks for your service. Thanks for the stories, man. It was great catching up.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And
Coach P, don't be mad about any of my stories. It was all fun.
All right. Good deal. Well,
Thanks,
we'll sign
Cash.
off. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.